Hey, so if you've been following my channel for a while, this might be a little bit of a different one. I want to dip my toe into the pool of complaining about internet leftists. Yes, the internet's favorite pastime. So, I just sort of have had a lot of points rattling around in my head that I wanted to get out. I should probably be going to bed, but I made this whole sticky notes outline, so I just want to get it out of the way. And just sort of talk about how my experiences have hugely been influenced and formed by my having a job in a few different kitchens and my various just sort of jobs that I have had, and how that has made me way more, and I think, a better anti-capitalist than anything I learned in school or even through reading. 'Cause even here on YouTube, a lot of the people who, have channels about this sort of stuff are artists, and they may have had, jobs. I mean, I'm sure they do jobs now, but I don't know quite what their relation to waged labor is. I get really frustrated with the idea that all, waged labor is something to be automated. I work in a kitchen, and honestly, nothing gives me the thrill that I get from really clean sheet pans. And I don't want to just give that up, because it's been automated in your super future, and I don't want to do that forever, but I think that it can be fun. I've already am off my outline, but so that's what I'm gonna get to. I get really frustrated with the feeling that I need to necessarily read a bunch of dead philosophers in order to understand what any of leftism is, because I don't need that. I don't need Marx and his coats. I understand, obviously, how capitalism works, because I deal with it every day. With these arms and these hands, I take a block of cheese, which is an investment by a company, and I turn it into what customers can actually buy, and I get paid less than that's worth. And, that's really obvious. I see that every day. I do that math every day, and I understand a lot about, having worked customer service. I have a lot of feelings about, emotional labor, and that as, actual labor. It's work that you get paid for, and I have a lot of feelings about, how, these places are set up. I have a lot of feelings about supply sides. I have a lot of feelings about farms, and all of it comes through, my job that I do, and not having read, bread and roses or something, because I'm sure those things are important, and, I am going back to school. I want to understand it better, but I don't think it's necessary. Yeah, and it's just one of those things that really frustrates me about trying to interact with all of this online. Because, I work with a bunch of people who, a lot of them don't want to, necessarily work in kitchens forever, and that's partly just because it's not what they're into, or, it's just sold as something that's really not important, when, in my opinion, a lot of the fields that are really, truly important are things like cooking and teaching children, and oh, wouldn't you know, those things are... Let's not even get into the feminisms. But, this is stuff I know, and this is stuff I talk about with my coworkers. And we understand this. And I get really frustrated with this idea that, like, there's a we and a they, and the we is leftists, and the they is the working class entirely, when, like, it's not that the working class needs to be taught, it's that, because, like, even in, you know, their any sort of utopia, or even if the right were in charge, certain things, like people needing haircuts and dishes being washed, is still, in the apocalypse, those things are always going to be needed, and it's going to be the same people who are doing it no matter what. You know, whether it's a cab company or Uber, it's the same pool of people who are going to end up wanting to drive for their job, because, like, every job is just funneling some sort of thing that's useful to the community, and it's being funneled through competition and companies. Like, to McDonald's and Burger King, every employee, every fast food employee, anyone at most of these places is completely interchangeable, or could learn basically the same thing but at a different store very quickly. That's one of the features of capitalism, is that it makes that really easy, but now, you know, the stuff's already there, and they're completely interchangeable as employees, so, like, the level of competition only goes all the way up to the top, to these CEOs and, like, big bosses, and they're the ones who are in competition with each other. When really, like, it doesn't matter. I don't think human beings work best when they're in competition for things. I think that a sort of dynamic sharing is really possible. I've seen, you know, in my times at jobs, I've seen worker self-management, you know, at work. I've had places where I was scheduled to the minute, and I've had places where it's like you show up and you're here for your shift, and, like, this is the stuff that needs to get done all day, but you can sort of divide it up amongst yourselves, and sometimes, you know, people can pick up slack for each other, and that, I find, happens very naturally if you just let people be free to do that sort of thing. But instead, you know, there's this corporatist top-down structure, which, like, you can write all the papers you want about how it's, you know, it's wrong, and we know it's wrong because this philosopher and that philosopher, but I don't need that. I can just ask anybody, like, hey, you know, like, everyone can tell you how a story about having a really dumb boss, or, like, a manager who was, like, clearly a nepotism case who made everything worse. Or in the situation of good employees, a good employee, your reward for being really great at your low-level entry job is to get a management job, which is a completely different skill set. And in a lot of places, management means your reward for being really good at this entry-level job is to go get a harder job, doing paperwork and writing schedules. And it's really frustrating to watch that happen again and again. And I've seen it, and anyone who's had a bunch of jobs at a bunch of places, or like, stayed there for a while, sort of your entry-level, passing out resumes, food service, customer service jobs, can tell you all about that, because we've seen it. And it's, I don't know. I have a lot of feelings about this. I'm working on it. I complain like this about this sort of thing in even more detail, like constantly at work. I'm actually, like, trying to spread the good news and make things happen and make things change. You know, I wouldn't want to oversell, my own job, because it is still a job. I do things like work 37.5 hours, and I make just a speck over minimum wage after more than a year there. But I found something where I feel like I am actually doing something that's useful to the community. There's a lot of talk about labor alienation, like alienation and labor, which is always talked about in these really, like, highfalutin terms that I barely understand in a lot of this sort of text, because it just gets, when it's the feeling of disconnect between, like, the floor that you're mopping and the money that you have to spend later. Like, you know in your head that you should work more so you'll make more money, but you get paid every 2 weeks, and it's for, like, 2 weeks ago, so it doesn't stick, and it just sort of feels random. And you don't get, like, you know, I make a lot of food and sandwiches, and they look really good, and I don't get to eat it. And, you know, that's alienation. There you go. It wasn't that hard. It's not that complicated. Like, actual people can understand it. You just need to learn, you know, show some interest in other people, and get to learn how it is that they're talking. And anyways, that's what I've been spending my time doing. Let's see if there's anything that I missed. I don't know. I'm really happy to be working hard at my job, because, like, I've sort of tried to de-alienate myself by feeling like I am providing a sort of essential service. I feel like I know something useful. In any situation, in any scenario, you know, the small group of people who live in and around that area, some of them are gonna need lunch and not want to have to make it, and that's what I'm here for. And I do spend a lot of time thinking about, like, if this was run as a, like, production based on need, collective-y thing, in some sort of utopian future. And I think about that. Because it gives me something happy to focus on while I'm at work. And I've been having a really good couple of weeks. I don't know. Just, you know, class is over, and I don't know. There's a change in the wind, and I'm just really enjoying a couple of weeks where I'm not worried about anything for a minute. Like, normally I'd be getting really anxious around this point, like, you've been feeling too good for too long. Something's gonna go absolutely terrible. And I'd start freaking out about it, but recently I'm just sort of like, well, that'll happen when it happens. And that's been pretty good. Alright, let's see if I missed any of my sticky notes. I touched on most of this. The other thing is just try to be a good customer. Just be a good customer. That's just general life advice. Okay. I'd like to make more videos on this kind of topic, and I need a haircut again soon. So, yeah, I have plans coming in for the channel. I've just been enjoying having some time off for a minute. It's been a while. I had 2 days off in a row a couple of weeks ago, and it was absolutely magical. So, hey, alright, bye internet. If you're usually here for other stuff, I care about this too. If you found this video first, the other stuff's weird. Okay, I feel really weird about this one, but apparently YouTube likes authenticity, and I can't think of anything much more authentic than how rambly and bad that was. Oh, also the sewing machine. I found it literally on the side of the road, and it works. It, like, plugs into the wall, and it works, and I'm really happy with it. And you have to have something interesting to look at in the corner of your videos. It's like the rule. This is literally all metal and like ridiculously heavy. I'm so excited about it. It's from the 60s. I'm thinking I might make a tutorial on fixing t-shirts if I ever actually get good at fixing t-shirts. Okay, that's my video. Later, internet.